Welcome to literary and jury charge practice. Let's start out with this narrative answer. Ready? Here we go. Well, I was already taking the brace off a little bit more, and I was getting used to not having the brace on when I broke it. The basic need for the brace was at the time when I first got home. During the first month, my back was really weak. When I would take off the brace, there was intense pain. I just really hurt. Then I broke the brace. It got to the point where it wasn't so bad. I didn't have it for a day or two, and I was kind of getting a bit used to it. By the second time the brace broke, I was just putting it on to get a bit more support. I really didn't need it. That was really a weird type of deal on that brace. It came right down to my pelvis bone, so that when I sat down, I was forced to sit straight up. There was a one-piece deal that came around just below my neck, and it came and somehow tied in the back. Anyway, after it broke the second time, I decided not to get it fixed, and I just didn't wear it any longer. I did check with the doctor, and he said if I was careful, it would be all right for me to go without it. He said he didn't think it would hurt me. I try to be careful. Now let's try some jury charge practice. And this is one we had started previously. The subject is conspiracy. Ready? Petitioner's presence at the service station on the evening of December 28 was closely related to these events. He waited there with Peters for Harris to return with Peters' car containing the 19 cans of alcohol. He was there again with Harris at about 10 p.m., but left shortly before Hart came. He returned while Harris, Hart, and the agents were there, and was arrested while attempting to drive away. Petitioner contends that the above evidence shows merely that he was a friend and associate of Mason and Harris. We conclude, however, from a record as a whole, that the jury could find beyond a reasonable doubt that petitioner was associated with Mason and Harris in the purchase of the garage, that he had access to it, and that he was an active participant in the transfers of alcohol to Hart and Peters. In considering the admissibility of the Hart confession, we start with the premise that the other evidence against petitioner was sufficient to sustain his conviction. If Hart's confession had included no reference to petitioner's participation in the conspiracy, its admission would not have been open to petitioner's objection. Similarly, if the trial court had deleted from the confession all references to petitioner's connection with the conspiracy, the admission of the remainder would not have been objectionable. The impracticality of such deletion was, however, agreed to by both the trial court and the entire court below, and cannot well be controverted. All right, now let's try this technical paragraph, and let's practice these words. Womanized, deterioration, process, preserve, expose, expensive. Ready? Here we go. Womanized lumber is lumber that has gone through a process that preserves it from rapid deterioration when it is exposed to cement or to the ground. After the womanizing process, pine will last as long as redwood. When the builder wants to use wood that will stand up under such conditions, he should consider womanized lumber. In areas where redwood is more expensive because of freight cost, womanized lumber is the answer. To some jury charge practice. The subject is conspiracy. Ready? Here we go. This court long has held that a declaration made by one conspirator in furtherance of a conspiracy and prior to its termination may be used against the other conspirators. However, when such a declaration is made by a conspirator after the termination of the conspiracy, it may be used only against the declarant and under appropriate instructions to the jury. The issue here is whether, under all the circumstances, the court's instructions to the jury provided petitioner with sufficient protection so that the admission of Hart's confession, strictly limited to use against Hart, constituted reversible error. The determination of this issue turns on whether the instructions were sufficiently clear and whether it was reasonably possible for the jury to follow them. When the confession was admitted in evidence, the trial court said, quote, "The proof of the government has now been completed, except for the testimony of the witness Greenberg as to the alleged statement or affidavit of the defendant Hart. This affidavit or admission will be considered by you solely in connection with your determination of the guilt or innocence of the defendant Hart. It is not to be considered as proof in connection with the guilt or innocence of any of the other defendants. The reason for this distinction is this: an admission by defendant after his arrest or participation in alleged crime may be considered as evidence against him, together with other evidence, because it is, as the law describes it, an admission against interest, which a person ordinarily would not make. All right, let's try this narrative answer. Ready? Here we go. I got up started to go out the side door. As I did, this man came around the pool table. Well, I assume that's where he came from. He came around from some place. He appeared there. I guess that's where he came from because he was down at the other end of the bar prior to that. At least I think that's where I saw him. He came up there and hit me in the eye as I was starting to walk out the door. I just turned kind of at an angle and bang, I got it right in the eye. He cut my eye in 2 or 3 places, and the pain was so great that I couldn't do anything. I was knocked down on the floor, and this eye just went shut, and it felt like a piece of glass or something in there. It felt as if it was on fire, and I was trying to dig at whatever that was, and the doctor said later it was because the eyeball was cut. The irritation and burning felt like something was in it. I thought perhaps he might have had a ring on or something by the way my eye was cut. It didn't just feel like a fist or anything. It felt like a ring, like a sharp object. And now for some technical practice. Let's try these words first. Audible, quarter, clockwise, assembly, extreme, upward. Okay, ready? Here we go. Unlock the cover by turning the key 1/4 turn clockwise. Then swing the bottom of the case outward about half the way and raise the cover upward until the black push bar disappears through the hole in the top of the cover. Then pull the case straight forward. Reverse the action when you are putting the cover back on. If the setting lever is at the rear of the assembly, it will extend toward the push bar. Move the lever to the extreme left and return slowly to the right until you hear an audible click. Now rotate the wheel counterclockwise to the next position. Be sure that the leaf spring is properly seated in the next slot after the setting is made. To relock, turn the key 1/4 turn clockwise and then swing the top half of the case inward until the black push bar reappears through the hole in the top of the cover. Let's see what we have here. We'll finish up our jury charge. Ready? Here we go. However, if such defendant, after his arrest, implicates other defendants in such an admission, it is not evidence against those defendants, because as to them it is nothing more than hearsay evidence. Close quote. There may be practical limitation to the circumstances under which a jury should be left to follow instructions, but this case does not represent them. As a practical matter, the choice here was between separate trials and a joint trial in which the confession would be admitted under appropriate instructions. Such a choice turns on the circumstances of the particular case and lies largely within the discretion of the trial judge. Accordingly, we conclude that leaving petitioner's case to the jury under the instructions here given was not reversible error, and the judgment of the Court of Appeals is affirmed. And that will conclude our literary and jury charge practice.